I'd like to welcome Di Halkes. Di, you should be unmuted now.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. I can see a
Well,
couple of familiar faces, which is lovely. Thanks very much for inviting me to speak to you. And I'm really happy to support the Hearts and Minds initiative because for me, it's been a bit of a change in the last few years. Some of you know me. I've been a health visitor since 1985 and working around the southwest and mainly Newton Abbot areas. And 2 years ago now, coming up, I made a decision to finish health visiting and move towards doing more creative work. So I started with some daytime courses in South Devon College, which started off just doing a day a week of printmaking and then some ceramic work and photography. And during one of the ceramic sessions, we were told that there was an option to do a foundation degree. So to cut a very long story short, last September, I started doing my foundation degree in South Devon College, which is 2 years. And it covers a massive range of things from ceramics, printmaking, photography, metalwork, woodwork, digital skills. I'm now learning Illustrator and Photoshop, amongst other things. And it's been a really amazing, fulfilling, fun journey, really.
so Di, can I just ask you a little bit more about how you came to make that decision? Because it just sounds like an amazing, wonderful thing to do. How did it come about?
Combination of factors, like all these things. It's not, well, there wasn't one single defining moment. It was bigger and more complex caseloads, less resources, less staff, different ways of working, which some of which were great and have been really good, others that I found challenging. And then my mum died and I was back and forth to Cardiff a lot supporting my dad.
Yeah.
And suddenly all these kind of things together made me reevaluate, take stock and look at what I wanted to do. And so I just started doing the printmaking as just to do something different for me. And it's kind of evolved from there, really.
It's interesting how sometimes it takes things like that to make us take stock and just think, well, what actually do I want to be doing?
Yeah, that was exactly it. It was that reevaluation and stopping, pausing of what do I want to do, really. So,
and I guess a lot of people are talking about that at the moment, aren't they? That this sort of period of lockdown and society sort of stopping is almost that same chance for people to think, well, what actually is important? What do I want to be doing?
Definitely. And I've got really good friends who encouraged me, and some of them were doing courses at South Devon and they were nagging at me to do ceramics. And I was like, oh no, I'm not that bothered really. And I'm so glad I did.
Did you have a background in doing those, or I mean, other creative activity? Is it something you've been involved with over the years? Or?
Not really, not much at all. I mean, I've always gardened and played around with doing things like that. I've done a bit of sewing, patchwork and crochet, but nothing at all like that, really, nothing at all.
It just sounds like an amazing leap of faith almost to.
It was, and it took a bit of gentle persuasion from somebody who's muted and got his screen off at the bottom. Of, well, if you don't do it now, when will you do it? Because both of the children, daughter was at university, son was finishing off university. It just seemed all to come together and be the perfect time to take the jump. I got to 55, I could retire. So I decided to make a go of it, really. And I've had great support to do that. So I've been very lucky.
It's fantastic. So I think it'd be really good to explore one of the projects you're doing at the moment, because you sent me some details and it just sounds really fantastic. And in a way is exploring one of the things I love most about living in Devon, really, particularly this time of year. So can you just tell us a little bit about the project that you're doing at the moment?
I've got a few things on the go. The big one at the minute is something called Boundaries, and it's looking at how, even though our boundaries shift, and mine certainly have in the last couple of years, how we still need something to boundary and enclose us and keep us safe. And the metaphor for me for that was hedgerows, because we were lucky enough to live in Australia for a year back in 2003. And the thing that I really missed was hedgerows, particularly May hedgerows in Devon, which are just glorious.
Yeah.
You know, there were those vast landscapes, but I really missed Devon hedgerows and deciduous trees. So
I was out on a bike ride this afternoon. I was lucky enough to get out, and just going past all the different flowers in the hedgerows this time of year,
yeah,
it's just amazing.
it's that froth of cow parsley at the minute, isn't it? And the campions and the bluebells, and we've just had the primroses, and I just adore them, really love them. So I've been busy taking photographs, doing ceramics, and then I've also been picking hedgerow plants and doing some weaving with those.
Let's take each of those step by step, if that's okay, because you
Yeah,
did
sure.
send some photos through. So let me put. So this is a photo that you sent through. What
I've been doing photograms of looking in detail and in macro detail at plants, and for me, like you, it was that time passing. And I love the fact that this is half a dandelion head, because there's some time that passed, but there's still time ahead of us to do those things.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved about that one, really.
Yeah, no, I mean that's certainly what struck me looking at that. The photo I put up earlier was trying to get the full head, but I think in many ways there's so much more meaning in this. As you say, it's time partially gone, but lots more to come.
Yeah, it's the promise of things to come, isn't it, really? I think that one for me.
So you've been exploring hedgerows and boundaries using lots of different media,
Yeah.
essentially. Is that
And
right?
I think one of the things that I've really appreciated about the course is the ability and the facility to experiment.
Yeah.
And you don't have to stick to one thing, you can just play around with everything. And that's what I am at the minute. I'm a real jack of all trades. I'm just playing with what I can do. So this was a ceramic slab pot that I made using new oak leaves and cow parsley.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And then I've glazed it with a natural colour glaze. So, but it was learning how to roll out clay, how to join slabs, none of which I'd done. And I can see that Esther's on this, and Esther's done a lot of ceramic work, but I was just starting off and taking baby steps with this, really.
So with the different plants and things that you've got there, did you have to press them first, or what did you?
No, I just rolled them straight into the clay. And then you let them dry in the clay, because obviously when you fire, they just burn out and disappear.
Wow, wow, no, it's beautiful.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm just interested in this potential kind of relationship from the experiences you've had clinically, the interactions you've had over the years, and your kind of story. Has that influenced you now in your art and your expression and the things that you're trying to tell and create, do you think?
I think so, because I think a lot of what I'm doing is about human stories. And all the way through my career, I've listened to human stories, particularly supporting new mothers. And I've done a lot of work with ladies with postnatal anxiety and depression. And I think the privilege of being in that position to listen to people's stories is something that is not to be underestimated, really. You're in a real, a special part of their lives, and to be trusted with that information, I've always felt has been a really great privilege.
Yeah.
And now I'm back actually at the minute doing a little bit of health visiting on the bank, and it's great to be back there doing that, but without all the additional politics and pressure of having and managing a caseload. So I can go in and do the nice bits, really, if you like. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Di, one of the other things that I was really interested in, about the project you're doing is, and you started talking about that earlier, how you're actually then using the plants
Yeah.
in different
So
ways.
I've got a few props. You've got the photographs of them, but I've been dyeing wool and weaving with it using natural plant dyes. And I think you've got some pictures, David, haven't you?
So that's a book that people can use, is that right?
This is the kind of Bible of natural dyes and wild colour. This is an old library copy, and is a much newer edition out there now. But Jenny Dean is the lady that you want. and she just goes through step by step. So that's doing the red onion dye, and this is the colour that I got off the red onion dye that I did, because I added something called a mordant to it, which fixes the dye. And I actually just used wood ash and soaked wood ash in a big jar of water and used the water from that to get the colour that I wanted in the wool. So the wool starts off that colour and goes to that.
So that was certainly going to be a question I'd got in terms of fixing it. So I mean, one of the things I was thinking about this afternoon, I just read that the government want us to make face coverings, don't they, out of old t-shirts and things. I mean, will this stuff actually, can you put it in a washing machine?
I'm not sure. I mean, it is colour fast. I have washed it and it will stay, but I think this is right, but it'll be in the Jenny Dean book, but I think you use salt for berry dyes and then you use vinegar for other dyes, but you can use things like alum and wood ash, and there's a whole series on different mordants that you can use to fix colours.
So what are you dyeing here?
This is my nettle bath.
Wow.
On the left is the nettle and wood ash colour, which gives you a darker green. And on the other side is just plain nettle. So again, these are the different colours for those. They're not so defined, those. Yeah, there you go. So on the far side, on the far left, you've got the nettle with on its own. Then you've got the nettle with wood ash, red onion and wood ash. Then you've got alkanet and then madder at the end. And those are two that I bought from the Wild Colours website and used those dyes. Mm. So the plan is to weave now using those.
So this is something you've woven, is that right?
That's a previous one that I did using that natural wool as the warp, and then the weft is hand dyed silk. Oh, wow. And that was rose hips, sycamore, oak galls, and birch leaves, I think, on that one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing itself is beautiful, but I think knowing what's in it gives it so much more depth as well.
Yeah, and I think what I'd like to do is play around. I mean, I've just got a very simple little hand loom, and I was lucky enough to do a beginner's course before lockdown with Devon Weavers Workshop, and they've got the specialist looms where you can raise and lift up to 8 different heddles, and I actually made a scarf with them using a silk wool with different colours, more hedgerow colours, but not naturally dyed fabric. And that was great fun. It was 3 weekends, 6 days with 8 other people. And the knowledge and skills of the Devon Weaving Workshop was just incredible. They were brilliant. Really, really good.
That's wonderful. Mm. Nick, have you got any comments or questions coming through from the chat so far?
Well, Matt's made a joke about your soups.
Is it worth sharing or not?
I can, if you like. Matt says, you have to be careful in our house. The soups are very strange. Kat's asked, are the dyes the same as would be using in medieval times? Good question.
I think some of them are. I think when you go back to those herb gardens and gardens that were planted, there were dyers' gardens planted, I think, weren't there, using certainly madder and alkanet and those sorts of plants. And certainly in the Jenny Dean book, she does go back into the history of some of the dyes as well. But the other thing that I did try was daffodils, and that worked really well. But sadly, I didn't have enough. I just dyed a load of paper with that and didn't have enough to do the wool as well. And by the time I got round to it, all the daffs had gone. So it's a seasonal thing for some of these as well, which I quite like. It gives you some limitations, but you have to work within those.
I've come across a quote where somebody says that's what you need for any sort of creative or artistic endeavor, really. If you've got a completely blank page and the world's your oyster, then you never get started. You need some boundaries, again, coming back to your project, where you say, right, these are the boundaries I work within, which is seasonal and what's available in Devon, and then your art flourishes from there.
Definitely. And there's a lady called Annie Albers. I don't know if anybody's heard of her, really famous weaver who left Germany, moved to America just before the Second World War, and is famous. She had a big exhibition last year in the Tate, and she says acceptance of limitations is one of the big liberating factors of your creativity.
Okay.
And within that warp and weft structure,
yeah,
you work within that, but your creative possibilities are endless within that structure.
Yeah, no, that's great. There's a comment about the tapestry on the wall behind you.
Oh yeah.
Do you do that one?
Oh no. That was a present years and years ago. I think I've always really loved textiles, and it's only when you pause and reflect that, and you look around your house and you think, oh, actually there are quite a lot of textile sort of things in here, but I'd never really given it thought until I'd started making my own things, really.
You put it into words, what it is that you love about it?
I think the history, I think the fact that a lot of the time it's women's work, in inverted commas, but there is a massive history around women and weaving and textiles going way, way, way back, and that use of natural fibres. And I think I like the history and the stories behind them, really.
Yeah, no, fantastic. So I'm just looking through if there are any other comments. I don't think there are any other questions at the moment. I could imagine going on with this conversation for a couple of hours at least, but I'm afraid we're going to have to stop there. We can put out details of the book. In terms of South Devon, do they do sort of short things that people can do rather than taking on a full foundation degree?
Yeah, and that's how I started. They do day courses. They last for about 10 to 12 weeks. And there's life drawing, ceramics, printmaking, photography, for sure at the minute. And they'll be restarting in September. And the facilities are phenomenal. They've got great facilities and incredibly supportive lectures. I've been dropping into the odd life drawing class as well. They're just really welcoming and friendly and completely accepting of absolute beginners, and encouraging of that, really, and people finding their creative voices. They're just so good at that support, really.
It's fantastic. And there's a comment that Plymouth College of Art also does great short courses as well. So, I think there's lots of support. And I think at Dartington as well, there are various sort of courses that you can enroll on.
They're out there, and there's some great online ones as well now. They're really good online ones as well.
Okay. I think we're going to have to draw that part of the conversation to a close, but thank you very much for coming and joining us as a guest, Di.
Pleasure. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Just really inspiring to hear you. Thank you.